Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Delivered to a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her, they've been feeling worse.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Dad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Thank you so much for being here. Let me just wait to make sure that chat can hear me. And thank you so much, Alex, for joining me tonight. I know that you're very well versed on this case, so I'm lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. I am so excited to get into it. Thank you for having me.
So just so everyone knows, I know it says re-examining the case. We're literally just going to thank you, Margie, for letting me know. We're just going to listen to news reports that were from 2 years ago and see what stands out to us now, or just kind of refresh things. So everything that will be playing tonight will come from Court TV, because I just love their reporting and I trust their reporting. And yeah, I just think that we will go back 2 years and watch the case break and unfold right before our eyes. So we're just going to go back in time and review the case that way. Hi.
My dad called. I'm sorry. It kicked me off.
You're fine. You're fine. That's what we love about live TV. Hi, Scottish Queen, and all my moderators and members and everyone here. We've got a lot to get through, so I'm not going to spend too much time on chat, but I will message you guys like in the chat while we watch this stuff. So let's just get into it. Okay, cool. Awesome. Music City Mom is happy because she didn't watch much on this case at the time, and I didn't either. In fact, I think the only stuff I watched on it was when I was moderating for your chat, and Criminality I know covered it, and just stuff I've seen in Facebook groups. So I know the surface level of this, but I want to just go back through and see if there's anything that kind of sticks out to us, because there are rumors that there's some serial killer in the area. And obviously Barry's lawyer is arguing that, it wasn't him, and that it could be tied to somebody else who's doing this to women and people in the area. So,
right. Well, I can't wait to dig into it with you, because I love the way your brain works with this stuff. So I think this is going to be fun. Yeah. And a good refresher for me too, because I followed really closely, but it's been a long time, and we talk about so much. So
I know. And it seems like a lot to this case too. And as everyone knows, he was arrested, Barry, and charged with tampering with her body and for the murder, I believe, first degree. But those charges were dropped. What is the word? It was
oh my gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Me too. I've been hearing it all day too.
Because it means that they can charge again, like without prejudice. Is that right? Or am I
yes, non-prejudice, right?
I don't know, Amber.
I think so, but it basically means that it was left open where, he can, with new evidence, he can be charged again. So will they discover new evidence with the medical examiner going over her body? That's what everyone is wanting to know. And hello, Tony and Crime Sleuth and everyone else who's joined us. Nikki Rex, it's good to see you. Hello, Melissa Jade, MK. All right, let's get in it. Without prejudice. Thank you, Tiffany.
There we go.
I really appreciate it.
Fun fact before we start, and I'm curious if you've seen this yet. So when he was charged, he was also charged with voter fraud. And during this time, it was right around the time that that was a huge topic on social media. We were hearing that a lot with the main election in the United States. And he actually took Suzanne's, he voted for Suzanne for Donald Trump. And I mean, if he thought she was just out there missing or had ran off on her own, why would he use her like mail-in ballot and vote? That makes no sense. But yeah, he definitely did that and got charged for it.
Wow, that is so bizarre. Just
Mhm.
everything about him that we've heard, like, again, before we even get into this, I mean, wasn't it Suzanne herself calling him Jekyll and Hyde, and that he was narcissistic and controlling?
Oh
I
yeah.
guess we can tie in that he has extreme political views if he's committing voter fraud.
Yeah. And I mean, even one of her daughters was kind of on, like, you'll, in some of the texts that were released and some of that stuff, we were learning that one of the girls was kind of, encouraging her to leave the marriage and that kind of stuff. She was seeing a lot of what was going on. He was very controlling. He was, yeah, very controlling.
Yeah, and I think that's something we should keep in mind too, like, if he is, in fact, which we don't know 100%, but if he is narcissistic, just like in Letitia Stauch's case, what the child is subjected to with a parent who has that personality disorder, I mean, that could be why they are so steadfast in standing by his side, because it's just sort of the dynamic between a narcissistic parent and the child.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all they've got left. Mom's gone and they're pretty young. So I'm not too surprised by that, especially if he is very manipulative, controlling. He's good at, making you think the way he thinks and getting you to kind of do what he wants. So I'm not too surprised by that.
Yeah, exactly. And statistically, in a lot of cases, like when one parent is charged, and the other one's sort of like the suspect or the main person that it seems everyone's kind of honing in on, that the kids will always stand by the parent, even though they're like number one suspect.
Yeah.
But there's another issue in this case too, just at surface level, that we can touch on before we get started. And that is, I guess, part of the reason why they had to dismiss also, or what part of his lawsuit is the fact that they held exculpatory evidence, which had to do with the partial DNA in her car on the glove box. And so they were saying that they were like withholding parts of the discovery against the defense at the time. So that was obviously a red flag and issue too.
Well, it's interesting that they're saying this in the lawsuit because they very clearly, like during the court proceedings, they talked about this DNA, right? They talked about there was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a couple profiles that showed up, and one they actually linked back to like a sex offender, I believe. But like it's been years, so let me just say I'm a little fuzzy on the details. But I don't see how they can. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
interesting that that's part of it.
Yeah, I think what I heard was it was like there were some essays that weren't there was no one like it was tied to those, but there's all this debate about it being a partial and all this stuff. So let's see if what gets mentioned before we get
Okay.
into all that, because again, I think we need just to refresh, and it looks like chat's ready to refresh too. So again, this I think was number one. The first video on Court TV. So this is 2 years ago. And thank you all for being here. If you haven't liked and subscribed, I appreciate it. It's all I ask, and it's totally free.
Dozens of volunteers combing the Colorado hills and countryside for Suzanne Morphew.
Morphew group over here.
The 49-year-old has been missing for more than 4 months. Her husband, Barry, told investigators that his wife went for a Mother's Day bike ride and never returned. The bike was found down a hillside off a trail, but there was no sign of Suzanne.
We're going to fan out, and we're going to work that area very carefully, okay?
Andy Mormon, Suzanne's older brother, is leading the search.
Work does the heart good, and this is work. So in a way, I feel like I'm moving forward and not sitting still.
Andy doesn't believe Suzanne's husband Barry's story about a bike ride.
I'm nearly certain she never got on the bicycle. I honestly believe she was taken the night before Mother's Day.
I already have to pause it because something I've kind of been thinking about this time around, looking through things, is like, are we even sure she really left on the bike?
I don't think so. I do not think so. I believe that was completely staged, especially if you see the photos of the bike, the way he acted. There was a YouTuber who ran into him during these initial days of searching and, heard him talking about it. Barry was very set on like this wild animal theory that this, mountain lion had gotten her. And I believe she probably never even left on the bike. That's my opinion, though.
Yeah, I think let's see. What does chat think? I'm seeing numerous people saying that the bike was staged. So comment down below too if you're on replay.
Just all the evidence points that way.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you.
That's Barry Morphew back in May in a video he posted asking for help finding his wife.
Please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you. We miss you. Your girls need you.
Barry Morphew is not accused of any wrongdoing by investigators, but his behavior.
Now, was it Melissa Jade who was saying earlier that it's interesting how he says your girls need you? And it's kind of like the Chris Watts porch interview where he says something along the lines of like wanting the girls to come bolting through the door and barrel hugging him. And he never mentions anything about Shanann like coming home. So like when he says your girls need you, I mean, that is interesting if we read into things like that,
Oh, yeah. Did you see that 1-minute video he made, like the old Suzanne with the FBI number at the bottom and stuff? He made a very quick video to the public of his, asking for help and asking her to come back. And his energy, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's been so long. I'm hoping that through these clips we'll get to see it again. But was that the little part of it that they just showed?
I had muted because Bentley had yelled for me, so I was like halfway listening and halfway not, so I didn't see. Actually, I was just listening.
I think it was. I think they're going to show little bits of it. So it is interesting. His eyes, he blinks a lot too. And some people, again, I'm not an expert, but some people think that that's, self-soothing, not necessarily a sign of deception, but it can be linked to that if you're for some reason having to like self-soothe,
Yep.
Behavior is raising questions. Though he was invited to join Mormon and the searchers, he's not helping look for Suzanne. Here's what Mormon told 2 retired detectives about an encounter with his brother-in-law during the search.
I was Barry. He was up there hanging trail cameras with a shotgun on his shoulder.
And what did he say?
He wasn't cross, but he said, you're about to go on private property and you're not allowed.
Court TV contacted Barry Morphew. He told us he had no comment.
You have the greatest hair. Is that a natural?
So I have to just pause it anyways right there. So this is, like I said, 2 years ago, very early on. I mean, this is the first reporting of Court TV has on this case. And they reach out to him to make a comment or, something. And he decides not to comment to Court TV.
Well, and also you played the clip about her brother in the search. Her brother organized a massive search. I mean, I remember that like these huge profiling evil, different channels with police officers, and a lot of people were helping organize this search, and Barry refused to be part of it. And when they got close to the property, like what you just played, where her brother actually Barry approached them during this search and says, no, you can't come on my yard. Y'all can, search all around, but this is private property, and would not allow them. And I think he had a gun, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it seems like they were saying he was walking around with his shotgun or whatever, but I mean, very interesting. Your wife is missing. Court TV is asking you, to come on. You could bring a lot of views if they had just titled it Husband Speaks, you know what I mean? And he decides not to.
Yeah, you don't want to speak. You don't want to search. I mean, immediately just red flags.
And so her remains were found 45 minutes away from their home. And it seems like they kind of stuck to that area, near the home when they were searching. I mean, why would you think it's just interesting, the length of distance away from home. It's just under an hour. So it's far enough time, but at the same time, close enough, to quickly do it. And some people have speculated that maybe he had moved her out there, after she was someplace else. Like, I don't know how we would ever be able to determine that with everything that he's had time to kind of hide. And I guess now he's not even living in Colorado.
Yeah, and the dogs actually hit on a couple different places. There was searches done like around her house, but also he had a job site that day building a wall. And see, he claimed he was working, and in this city you're not even allowed to work on this specific day. He didn't have a permit to do it. Um and so there was a lot of suspicion around this particular area. And then also another area, there was a beach. They actually did like dug up a lady's yard and everything because she claimed to hear a bulldozer or whatever in the middle of the night. And like, so there was a couple places they thought she might have been. I'm curious if he might have had her in one of those places and then moved her as well.
And it's also interesting to me, like, I know that he has that lawsuit against the DA and I think CBI, or I'm not really sure, but he's obviously suing people who were, he says, defaming him, saying that he was the only suspect in all this stuff, everything that took place when he got arrested. And it's interesting, like, yeah, that could be why he decided to leave Colorado, right? Like, you could argue, like, well, the man wanted to start over. If he's innocent, I get that. But it's also interesting to look at it as, like, she was, up until this week, which is, breaking news, she was a missing person. Like, she was presumed dead. But at the same time, like, the family made a statement with something along the lines of, like, they're devastated and, grieving because they kind of held on hope, thinking that they would see her again or she would come back. You know what I mean? And I was thinking, like, but then why did he move? For what if she was like held captive by like some freaky neighbor or something, and she breaks loose? She goes back to her house or like the area that she knows as home, and they're moved. It's just interesting. Like, he can argue it as like, well, yeah, my life was destroyed. I had to start over outside of Colorado. But at the same sense, it's like, but if she's missing, it's just interesting, like, up and leave.
Yeah, I agree. It reminds me of the whales because people were saying the same thing about them leaving. Like, when you have a missing loved one, it's interesting, and people notice when you leave while they're still missing.
All of this, because Barry Morphew, it's his home. I don't know emotionally where he is. I don't know emotionally where his daughters are. I don't know if they just want to be out of the house. They're not really bothered by the media because they basically live in the middle of nowhere. But do they want to move away from there because bad memories, yet she's still missing, and we don't know what happened to Suzanne Morphew? So I'm going to need some help. Let me bring in Court TV special contributor Ashley Banfield. Ashley, to me, this is a difficult issue, not knowing Barry Morphew, not knowing the daughter.
I just have to say, I like her hair straight like that.
Ooh, I like it too. Amber, he posted some of their property for sale within like weeks of her going missing. I remember that was a big thing because, he had her within like a month of her going missing. He had her declared to be dead by the court so he could sell their property. And I mean, I don't know. And it was fast. I know that that's what we're talking about anyways, but just wanted to make the point that it was really quick that he did this.
Right. And it's like, can you fault people? Can you blame them and say that they're 100% guilty just based off of their behaviors? Like, no, but at the same sense, like, doesn't it kind of all come into play? Like, something like that, like, that's red flag. Oh, yeah. Hello.
Absolutely.
Hi.
I just realized after I added you, I didn't even check to make sure it was you. Like, we could have gotten bombed with,
Penis.
Thankfully, there was a comment on the screen. And
yeah, I'm covered anyway.
And look at Vinny's face. Like, he looks like he was ready for it. Oh, well, thank you for being here. I want to touch on E.E. Caroline's comment about the tranquilizer dart. Barry's story about tranking deer to poach antlers is nonsense, which is also illegal. And he like owned up to that too. He comes up with the most idiotic tales, which means he is guilty or a squirrel or both. Do you guys believe the prosecution's narrative with like maybe he stunted her with the tranquilizer?
I mean, I I'd like to see what they have that they're basing it on, or if it's just like a total theory, you know. But I totally forgot, Allie, listening to you, I totally forgot about how there was the YouTuber that had gone out and interviewed him about 3 weeks after she was missing. And that interview was really telling because he was like totally off his game, and he was like rambling about her being possibly dragged off by like, what was it, like a mountain lion or something?
A mountain lion. Yeah.
And it was
Tyson
really
Denver.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, they touched, I think they're going to touch on maybe that one, or they did in like their most current court TV one. They played like a small clip of it, but I want to see like the whole one again for sure, because that, like you said, he didn't know he was being recorded. So everything's very loosely flowing.
That's a good one to watch. But about the tranquilizer dart, I just want to say, like, so this is some of the evidence that they had against him that we got to see, because they didn't go to trial, so we only got that affidavit. But they found the dart in the dryer. Like, they found part of it, not all of it, in the dryer. That's pretty much it, besides the fact that her cell phone, they were going by her pings, and not just, people think cell phone pings are inaccurate. They were going by very detailed pings that could show her moving across the property, running as if she was being chased. And then they showed like the door to their bedroom was broken. They were trying to plant, like, they were showing like the story of her being chased, you know, like possibly running from the dart or him or the gun, locking herself in the room. He busts in. They found like a bullet on the bedroom floor, but there really wasn't a lot because they hadn't found her. So basically just part of this dart in the dryer, and then her cell phone pings, or not pings, but you know, her cell phone location data.
The cell phone moving, like, does that indicate her running, or could it be traveling in something?
Well, I don't know. It could be traveling in something, but like their theory that we got to see was that she was like trying to escape him, you know, that it was pretty fast and, you know, in this.
And that's the problem too, is like, it sounds compelling. Like, I remember now that you're talking about it, when they were talking about her movements of the phone, and it sounds like, oh, wow, you know, but again, if we're talking about convincing 12 jurors, would 12 people see that as the same theory? You know what I mean? So they kept saying, well, we have to find her, and we'll have more evidence once we do. Now it's just like, we're going to be waiting on the edge of our seats, I think, with whatever the medical examiner finds. And hello, the analyst in criminality. It's good to see you guys. And Roxanne, hello.
You guys know what's crazy? That psychic, Reverend Donna Serafino, which I know people have their thoughts one way or another, but before all the court paperwork came out, she had done a reading on this, and she claimed in her reading that like Suzanne was being chased and running.
And they had gone into a fight in her bathroom, right? It started in the bathroom or something. Yeah.
Yes, she even said the bathroom part. She said she noted where she thought they had ate, and it was very similar to a place, because they went on this little, I think Friday before she went missing, they went out to eat lunch. It could have been Saturday. But the psychic was like very accurate with several things. It's pretty crazy.
After I run through this, like, I'm not opposed to listening to her like read through, like, privately, not live with you guys or anything. I want to get through this stuff first, but it would be interesting to hear that, like, before we hear the medical examiner's like findings and all that.
Her Valo reading was so spot on. Like, whether or not you're into that type of stuff, her Valo reading was so spot on that I'd give her a chance just with readings based on that Valo reading.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. And hello, likely Nicole and everyone else who's joined. Joe wants to know, did they find her whole body? So the location of the body has been very hush-hush, because obviously they don't want people going there gawking and maybe possibly stumbling on evidence. But I'm not sure like how intact it was. That's another thing that it seems like they're keeping close to their vest. What do you guys know?
They used the words, so because I had posted this, but I deleted it because I thought it was insensitive, a community post. First, let me say I'm so freaking thrilled to be here talking about this with y'all, because I've been wanting to talk about this since it happened, and I haven't really talked to anybody about it. But in one of the articles about finding her body, they said they believe she was in a shallow grave and then she was scattered. So investigators were finding so I don't know if that means an animal. Like I said, I thought it was kind of insensitive, so I deleted the post, but I mean,
Yeah, I had just read that article too, and I was a little bit confused on what exactly that meant. It said that she had initially been buried in a shallow grave, and then her skeletal remains scattered, and so I wasn't really sure what to take from that.
Yeah. Does that mean like someone buried her and then an animal got to her or something like that? Or, I mean, that's kind of what I assume, but I don't know. There was a theory. Now, many people had the theory that he had done something like that to her. And there was, there's some interesting evidence. Like there was a hit on his bobcat. There was an entire human footprint in his bobcat bucket. I hardly saw this talked about anywhere, but I read it in the court paperwork. There was an entire human footprint in his bobcat bucket. It was never tested. But I'm thinking, when do people go barefoot to do construction? When are they climbing in their bucket barefoot? That is bizarre to me. Like that, I don't know.
That makes me really nervous for what was in the bucket. Like, was it pizza? You know what I mean? It's just like, what? And yeah, I know that some news stations were saying that they believe she was found here and that this mark and other people have dug into it. But, until law enforcement says this is where she was found, like, I feel like a lot of people are just theorizing. Like, it seems like it was in this area because I'm hearing that it was close to a road, but far enough away where you couldn't see it for all these years, like just looking over. So I don't know. I just feel like CBI is trying their hardest to keep it hush hush. And if they're trying to, like, I'm not trying to go dig and be like, where was it? You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why it's kind of, everyone has their different theories right now about where it was. Like, I seen Gray Hughes was going and looking at it, and then I'd seen another live stream looking at it. So I don't know. I think that we should just kind of wait until it's confirmed, like here and here, because right now I think that they have it as like a radius of where they think. And I heard that they were looking for that other missing woman, the 55-year-old, when they found her. So there's just this red flag and just something that's honing everyone's looking at is like, is there a serial killer out there? And again, we just don't know. But let's continue this because I'm weirded out by Ashley Banfield wearing pink, and I hardly recognize her, and this was only 2 years ago.
Also, if you said Vinny looks like he's ready for that, look at her face and picture her like she's like, that's all you got. She's ready for it too, the peen bomb.
I know I barely recognize her. I don't mean to just like focus on her looks, but like, we watch enough of Ashley to say like, whoa, who is this person?
Her facial expression kills me.
I didn't even realize that was Ashley.
And how they feel about all of this. And they really haven't lived there long. They're originally from Indiana, so they've only been out there in Colorado for a couple of years. So what are you taking away from the now house for sale, $1.7 million?
I mean, I take a lot away from all the details. Number one, the notion that he's not involved in the searches. I find that very troubling. I think any one of us watching this right now, you, me, and all the viewers, if our loved one was missing, we wouldn't sleep at night. We'd be out scouring the backyard every night. We'd be out climbing the walls and the mountains and the hills looking for our loved one. We'd be out searching. That's number one. Number two, if a television network calls you, you call back because you're desperate to keep your story in the press to help find your missing loved one. You're desperate to do anything to keep the media interested. And the last thing you typically do is say, no comment. That's troublesome. And then that house that you're showing there, Vinny, what a beautiful place. It looks like in better days, it may have been just an oasis for a family. They were there for 2 years. And the fact that 5 months-ish now later, it's up for sale. If Mr. Morphew were mounting legal bills, meaning he were, trying to defend himself against any charges and the bills were mounting, I might be able to give someone a break to say, look, you've got a $1.75 million house. I get it. You got to liquidate. You got to take the equity out of that. You got to pay your legal bills. He doesn't have any that I know of. Certainly aren't any charges. Why do you need the money? And wouldn't you want to wait and not change a thing or move an inch if your wife is missing and might be coming back or may scramble out of the woods one day? I mean, we know that, Elizabeth Smart was gone 9 months and then came back. She wasn't.
Again, this is 2 years ago before he was charged even. So the fact that, we're looking at this again and he had put the house up for sale before he's even charged, it's like, did he expect that he would need legal money, like money for legal aid? You know what I mean? Like, was he just waiting for that to happen?
Well, yeah, and it's kind of like, is it a guilty conscience? You did something and it's that feeling of wanting to run, like, let me get out of here quickly while I have the opportunity to.
And just whatever crime took place there, for him to want to distance himself from it, it's just interesting. So did he move out of Colorado at this point? Or was he just moving away from that property? Do you guys know?
Well, I believe he first actually he sold a different piece of property, not their big home. Then he did the big home, and I believe, and maybe like Teresa's in the chat, she can remember because I haven't refreshed on this very much the last couple of days, but there was a Daily Mail article of him at an apartment with that show Shauna with his new girlfriend. So I think he just relocated locally first. Well, actually, I know he did. He relocated somewhere locally first, and then away.
Very interesting. And hello, Lambs Bond, and everyone else who has joined. Thanks for being here. And yeah, that I watched Criminality's documentary when it first came out. I'd like to refresh it. And so if anyone needs like a run through of it, check out her channel. And I know that she worked hard on that documentary.
Far away. I know this story too many times for this to smell good.
Well, here's the other part of it, right? From Barry Morphew's perspective. She went for a bike ride that morning. That's what he says, and they found where the bike was. So what could have possibly happened? How could it have possibly happened that the bike was just left there? That's the.
And it's interesting too that it just seems so obvious of a staging for him to be right off the bat, tell everyone that she went for a bike ride. You know what I mean? It's just like laying the ground for them to find it and be like, oh, yep, he was right. Like it just seems so obvious.
Yep, agree.
And in a lot of situations, like the perpetrator will lay the narrative first. You know what I mean? Like when he tried to say like, oh, mountain lion, you know what I mean? He was like hoping that would maybe pick up or he was like testing it out.
Right.
And the girls actually reported her missing, and it was like through the neighbor. It was like he called the neighbor, I believe. The neighbor went and checked. He's like, I think she could be. He told the neighbor, I think she could be gone on a bike ride, in my opinion, in the way that I remember it. The neighbor goes to look, doesn't see her, and then the girls actually, I believe it, are who called in.
Well,
but
that's
like
kind of
there.
It's similar to that. I forgot the name of the case, but it's the case before the Chris Watts, the case that's similar to it. And it's the guy who killed his wife and kids also. But just like him, he also called his neighbor to check on his wife and kids, even though he had killed them. But it's this way of, I don't want to be the one to kind of like find that there's something wrong. So I'm going to have you do it.
Right.
The part that I just don't understand is how do you put that together? Like initially people were talking about mountain lions, but no remains were found anywhere around there. I mean, they have searched that area through and through. I want to take a listen to Andy Mormon, who is Suzanne's brother, leading this search, and what he has to say about Barry.
I would love it if Barry got eliminated out of this. That would make me feel great. That in itself would be success. Of course, I want to find my sister and bring closure to my family, but I certainly don't want this to be murder. Every time the dogs hit on a scent, it seems to be close to or around one of his properties. And I'm not saying anything. What that might indicate is that scent was on his bobcat, and everywhere he used it, we're running into it.
sleep is the
So wait, what was he talking about? Some scent?
Yeah, every time the dogs hit on a scent.
The dogs hit on the bobcat. And
Okay.
yeah.
Just want to hear that again real quick.
And the search has come up empty, Ashley. They have hits there, but they come up with nothing. Police have processed the house, so they're done with their part of the investigation of the home. So where are we? Where do you think we are right now?
You are, you're where those pictures are showing you. You're at a loss. There are missing signs begging for help, hoping for a tip. Over 1,000 tips have come in, but so far, at least it's being kept close to the vest. If it's gone anywhere, if those tips have gone anywhere, there's certainly no charge that we know of that's in the offing for Barry Morphew. It just reeks of a case I covered in 2009 in Utah, and I bet you'll remember this. Susan Powell, she went missing, and her husband, Josh Powell, didn't help really to search for her, didn't do media interviews, put the house up for sale, even though everyone thought, but if she's coming home, won't you want to be there? He had 2 little kids. He said he went out camping in a snowstorm the night before when she went missing with the 2 little boys, one of them in diapers. None of it added up. It just seemed weird. And months later, I'm trying to remember the timeline on it, but he ended up blowing himself and his 2 children up inside his father's house in Washington State. It was just a horrendous story. And the torture of those family members went on for so long as they tried to find out where Susan Powell was. We never did find Susan Powell's body. We have no idea where she is. We just know pretty much it was Josh. Even though they couldn't charge him, they'd search that.
2 years later, I know it's a different case, but we still don't know where Suzanne's body is. It's just horrific. Like, we're lucky they found Suzanne.
I thought they would never find her. I had already just like Summer Wells, like I have hope still, but you just get to a point where you're like, geez, is it ever going to happen?
Yeah.
And surprising when it does.
Hi, Brooks Richards. I know it's like, you don't want to say the words in your head, like they're gone, but like you do, you start to just say like same with John Bonet when we talked about it on your live, Melissa Jade. I just think like, it's always going to be, oh, it's this person. It could be this, we're never going to get like somebody arrested, I feel.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm wrong, but.
Right. I didn't expect it with Suzanne. I didn't. And I'm pleasantly surprised. It's bittersweet. It really is. But I really hope that now that we found her remains, like I said, that they're able to determine a cause and manner of death, because I'd hate to have come this far and for them not to be able to get those answers that would be really crucial in getting her the justice that she deserves.
I know. And it's all up in the air. Like, what condition is her bones in? Like, we have to take in consideration animals and all that maybe have messed with it or whatever, so it's like they just kept saying we're going to have more evidence, and there has to be something, and the other issue is, what is she wearing?
Yes. Well, she was reported to be in this turquoise top, which these searchers found a top in like water nearby the house that looked like a similar color. I'll be very interested in what she's wearing as well. But you know what, you guys, just thinking about like how you give up a little bit of hope. This does give me hope that, like, let's say one day Summer's found as well, and I don't know. It's crazy that she's like with these Suzanne, like I don't know. I don't know what happened. I hope that we can find out. I hope they can tell a little bit, at least from her body. I've heard of cases where they've taken like stuff out of the eyes of bodies that were, just bones or different things like that, where they were able to get, because I would like to see what's in her system as well. But if, I'm sure there's no tissue. See, the prosecution said even when they like dropped their case against Barry, they said, we believe we know where she's at. She's under, so much snow we can't get to her right now. And then summertime came and winter came again and summertime came again. So she's been through, many seasons, but there is a lot of snow there. So there's a lot of time that she's been missing where her body would have been somewhat preserved. I just wonder, I don't know.
Yeah. And I guess that kind of helps. Like, maybe there was less animals around that area. If it's frozen a lot of the time, I don't know. Never been to Colorado. I just know that it seems there's a lot of crimes that take place out there.
Yeah.
A house. They looked for Susan Powell, couldn't find any evidence. And so those are the stories that are so distressing. And by the way, since I've been around the block a bit on this whole crime thing, that's not the only time I've heard of a spouse with a missing spouse putting a house up for sale.
Yeah, we've seen it so many times. Trying to figure out who Barry Morphew is, I think, is a big part of this. And as we said, he moved from Indiana to Colorado. He'd only been there a couple of years. But a family friend from Indiana was part of the search crew. Court TV spoke with him. Let's take a listen to him describe Barry Morphew.
I think Barry and I were similar in a lot of ways. He was, we lived on acreage. We chose to live on acreage that was remote because we valued our privacy. And he takes his role as a father and a protector. He's serious thing I do. And I think you combine that with, the other thing is that he can be an intense person. He's very driven, as in the same way also. And sometimes people can read into things there that, it doesn't mean anything other than just when you have to be driven and intense, you can be driven and intense. And I've heard people talk about him, and I don't like the kind of things that I hear because but I understand if you're an outsider and you don't know someone that has seen, you're reading behavior that you have no basis to understand, and you start drawing conclusions. Given the magnitude of this tragedy, really is he's just in a terrible position.
Intense. That word kind of jumped out at me. He described Barry Morphew as being very intense. Where does that take us?
Look, you don't want to ascertain blame if the investigators aren't there yet, and I don't even throw that yet in there casually. They may be there at some point. They may get the information that they need to move forward with a case, but right now they don't have one. But I recall being in this boat a lot before. Vinny, you've been in the boat with me. You betcha. We just talked about him last night. We're about to talk about him in another 45 minutes from now, you and I. It's another development in his case while he sits in prison. But Chris Watts made inquiries within days of Shanann Watts disappearing, as he begged us all to help find her. He made inquiries with a realtor to sell the house. And there's another famous case that you spent many waking hours covering, and that was Scott Peterson. Do you remember what he did while Lacey was missing?
He was trying to sell her truck, wasn't he?
He sold it. But
he did sell it.
He sold it was a Range Rover. He sold her Range Rover and bought himself a new truck, and also made inquiries to sell the house while Lacey is effectively at that point in the story still missing. And he is also attending vigils and on his phone with his girlfriend, Amber Fry. And I could go on.
I thought he was at the Eiffel Tower.
Right. Well, to his girlfriend, he was. There were lots of lies in that story, right? So to the girlfriend on the phone, I'm at the Eiffel Tower. Meanwhile, I'm at a vigil for my, now I know dead wife, but everyone else thinks she's missing, and I should be looking sadder than I do. I digress. But there's another case. This one is in Signal Mountain, Tennessee. I've never been there. Here it's beautiful. Gail Palmgren also went missing. Her husband, Matthew Palmgren, listed the home 4 months after the disappearance. Her Jeep is also missing. This happened in 2011. But there are all these cases where, I guess, look, everybody mourns differently. Everybody panics differently. Everybody behaves differently. But it is always very suspicious if you try to get rid of the family home, just about the only thing you have left to cling to, when your loved one, your spouse, the mother of your children or the father of your children is missing, especially within days or months of those people going missing. There are a few other signs, though, Vinny, to look for if investigators are seeing this as an unusual thing. You check the email, you check the fitness, right? Chris Watts had really buffed up before he started, going out with his girlfriend. You start to look and see if they donate clothes, because we've seen that in cases before, right? All of a sudden closets are getting cleaned out, but these people are still missing, not, dead, and yet out go the clothes of the spouse. I don't need these anymore. The tense that they speak of as they talk about their loved one, she was always so wonderful, or she is so wonderful. Investigators are tuned for that. They listen for that a lot. And then, of course, the searches, participating in the searches. Do you participate? Do you not? And of course, again, the media. You should be begging for the attention to find your loved one, not issuing it.
Yeah, to me, that's the biggest one, is that he's not out there searching with the brother, and he's apparently moving away from an area that you would want to search and continue to search. And I remember there was a young girl that was missing, and I interviewed the father during one of my programs, and he was literally on an ATV searching. He hadn't slept in 3 days. He was just searching for his little girl, and it ended up his neighbor was the one who did it. But at the end of the day, I've spoken with people that were 100% innocent and wanted to find their loved one, and I saw the way they act. It's different than Barry Morphew, but it is what it is. The house is for sale. Ashley, we're going to speak again, top of the hour, talking about the latest in Chris Watts, folks. We've got a lot to get to there. But by the way, Chris Watts' house for sale, as Ashley mentioned, this house for sale, others. So we put up a poll and asked you, take a look there. Would you buy a house where a crime was potentially committed?
Okay, again, that was 2 years ago. That's what we're going through tonight. So that was, they're still talking about Chris Watts. I swear, like Ashley was obsessed with him.
Everyone kind of was, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True that. So
And
this
you know what though,
is,
like there was, oh, I'm
no, go
delayed.
ahead.
I'm so sorry. There was a lot of evidence against him. If we think about the Brian Koberger's affidavit, do you guys know how many pages that was? I don't know, but I know it was like 20-ish, right? Like I don't remember how many. But Barry Morphew's was like 130 or 140 pages. Like they had a lot of evidence. There was a lot of things, yes, circumstantial, but there was a lot.
Well, everything is really circumstantial unless there's an eyewitness to the actual crime itself. Everything's going to be circumstantial.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and think about it, before technology and all that, like they were relying on circumstantial to kind of try people. Like if we're talking about what, before 19, whenever they came out with DNA analysis and all that technology. So people try to write off circumstantial as, oh, well, that can be explained. But like even in Murdoch, I mean, the Snapchat was damning and he lied about being there, but a lot of the stuff was circumstantial. Like you could go back and argue that case back and forth, I feel, because it could be interpreted certain ways, but that's the thing about the cell phones nowadays, which can be concrete, but at the same time, it's still circumstantial.
Exactly. And I remember Melissa recently actually getting into this on her channel, like talking about circumstantial evidence and how unless someone directly witnesses it, and like there was a little debate going on, but I mean, you're 100% correct. Both of you guys are. It's crazy.
Blood
Should I
evidence
leave and
can
try
be
to come back?
circumstantial. DNA could be circumstantial, which is crazy.
Yes, it is crazy. But I'm so delayed. Let me try to leave and come right back. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay. It's not that bad, but
is it not? Then I'll say.
It's really, I don't think it is, but you can do whatever you would like to do. We'll be here.
As long as I'm not like bad, then I'm okay.
No, you've been much worse in the past, trust me. It's not bad at all.
Okay.
All right. So this is, again, everything tonight is from 2 years ago, Court TV. This is as soon as he was arrested. This is their breaking news at the time. So let's hear what unfolded right in the beginning.
No questions asked. However much they want, I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. I want you back so bad.
Guys, do you?
And something I also noticed too, like at this point, like they haven't mentioned her affair yet. So it's just going to be interesting, like when that gets mentioned. That is a huge, huge key to all this. Like the fact that she was texting that boyfriend and then her phone kind of goes silent, right?
Well, I remember when that came out because it didn't come out for a long time. I believe it was during his preliminary. Yes, it was because last night I was looking at my old videos. During his preliminary hearing, like that, there was a ton of evidence released then too, and that was one of the first things, and it was a huge bombshell. People were shook because they thought for sure Barry was cheating, but Suzanne, everyone who knew her just talked about how kind and loving and nurturing and what a wonderful woman she was. So people were really shocked.
Right. Not that you can't be a kind, loving woman while having an affair, but people just did not expect it. And we hadn't heard about it, you're right, for a very long time. And it was like a bombshell, kind of like when that came out.
Right. And I think like kind, loving, and religious is part of why they were like, whoa, because she's married. Yeah.
Nobody expected it. Well, and because she was portrayed just as like the all-American perfect wife image. And so affair just wasn't something anybody would even entertain.
Yep, absolutely.
Scotty Skull says, I need to get YouTube Premium. I know. It's on the list. But at the same time, it kind of allows me to pause and check in with chat too while the commercial's going off. But I've noticed too, just like no one victim shames the victims in the Long Island serial killer case, that they're all sex workers. I haven't seen anybody victim shame Suzanne for cheating. In fact, I feel like when that news broke in the case, it kind of was like, oh, wow, like then this makes sense. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like this, that's why this is what happened, like at least that's how I'm standing at this moment. Like Barry found out. How do you guys think Barry found out?
Yes, I absolutely think he found out. I think, well, we know that she accidentally recorded herself on that spy pen, which I don't think that's how he found out, he also recorded himself on that as well, but not cheating, but doing dumb shit. Or excuse me, like dumb stuff. But I do think that he found out because those text messages to Jeff, like right before, I just think that is such a coincidence. I could see him just like stumbling across that and becoming enraged. But
yeah, and like he's not the type of guy I feel that would take, even though there's rumors like MK has brought up, that he was cheating. For me, Barry is the type of guy like it wouldn't be like, okay, we should end this, like we're kind of both stepping out on this marriage. Like to me, it's like even if he had a side piece, he can't have her sharing her with anybody. Like that's just kind of the vibe I get from him.
Well, and Suzanne mentioned him having an affair in one of her text messages to him.
Yeah, and he was that would be something to look over again, those texts. And also I was thinking while we were watching that, like the arrest affidavit, there is so much in there. Like we could talk about this for hours. There's just so much to this case. Even Teresa, when she made that documentary, I remember she was like, I tried to make it short, but I kept like, there was other stuff that I kept remembering and stuff that I felt like needed to be in it. There's just so much.
And I'm hearing Caroline says, weren't they only together once, emotional affair? And I don't know, because I had heard that they'd met up like 6 times or something.
I think they met up a few times.
But either way, it's kind of like, it makes you think, if that's the last text message was her sending a picture and people say that she was sunbathing or whatever, it's just, it adds like a different layer to all this that kind of pieces things together more, and it doesn't look good for Barry.
No, it doesn't. And remember what I told you last night, Amber, he accidentally recorded himself listening to Forensic Files, I believe, some kind of show like that about a woman who went missing on a bike ride. And it's just interesting. And the prosecutors brought that up. They felt like that was also circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, and that's the thing too about going through this stuff. I'm hoping that, like you said, that you could go through the affidavit and all that. I hope that this like prompts like you guys to do stuff on this case, like on your channel, like, oh, I want to do this and that, because I feel like when we get the news back from the medical examiner, there's just going to be another bombshell or something, intense is going to be revealed in this case, and hopefully it's furthering towards justice for her.
I'm sorry, but a spy pen is crazy.
I know.
Just leave. Like, if you're at a point where you're having a spy pen in your relationship, just leave.
See, it was hers for him. And I think that he was so controlling. She was having such a hard time leaving. He was very possessive, controlling, and stuff like that. But you know what? We should go through the affidavit together. I think it would be fun. Like, it's long. It would have to be a couple live streams, but that would be really interesting to do together.
Definitely.
Anywhere. Sure. I don't care where.
And the thing too about, like, I know, and everyone in chat is just saying, like, walk away. Like, if, not exactly a good sign when both spouses are cheating. And when you have the money that they seem to have, like, I think that maybe the spy pen was her effort to kind of present something in divorce court. I'm not sure how Colorado
Right.
is, but if she could prove that he was cheating, she might get more alimony or maybe get more than 50%. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm sure that it was done for a calculated reason to protect herself. And it's just like the Susan Powell case, because wasn't she like documenting things too,
Right.
like
Yes.
just lining things up in case she like
Yes.
passed or whatever, and boom. It's terrible.
See, if I remember correctly, I know that Barry, he made good money, but I believe that Suzanne had some sort of, like, when somebody passes away and leaves you money, and she brought a lot to the table as well. So money was that, I don't know. I think that money's always been something that's been discussed when talking about them potentially going to divorce court rather than the.
And as we sit here tonight, investigators not expecting a safe return because, again, they've charged Barry Morphew with the murder. Sloan Dickey, a reporter from our great affiliate KMGH, was at the press conference today and has more for us tonight.
The big news conveyed from the press conference here in Chaffee County is that this is no longer a missing person investigation for the search for Suzanne Morphew, as her husband, Barry Morphew, has been arrested on first-degree murder charges. The Chaffee County Sheriff, John Speasy, did not disclose much information about the nature of the case, such as what information over this past year led to the arrest of Barry Morphew. Search teams still have not located Suzanne or given us any information. They've narrowed their search for her body. The sheriff did say that law enforcement has been collecting evidence and building their case over the past year, leading up to this arrest.
In early April, the extensive work completed by our investigative team was presented to the 11th Judicial District Attorney's Office. In that multiple-hour presentation, we outlined all of the information and evidence we have taken in over the past 12 months.
Now we can confirm that Barry Morphew was arrested on Wednesday in Poncha Springs, which is near Salida, where he's being held at the Chaffee County Detention Center. His first court appearance is set for Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Reporting in Chaffee County, Sloan Dickey, Court TV.
All right, let's bring in our special guests, a couple guys who have taken a really in-depth look at this and know more than anyone about it. Retired police commander, host of Profiling Evil, and the global director of emergency communications and fraud at Esri. Mike King is with us. Mike is also the author of Deceived, an investigation memoir of the Zion Society cult. Also with us tonight in Salida, Colorado, host of The Interview Room and Profiling Evil, former homicide detective and director of law enforcement relations.
Can I just say, I don't ever see Mike King and Chris McDonough on any panels like this or on court TV like this. Like, I feel like this is the only time I've seen them together
Anymore. Yeah. But, they were very close with her family. Like, they got, like, with her brother, and also Suzanne's dad was in the process of passing away as she was missing. And all he wanted was to find her before he went, which unfortunately did not happen. But they were a huge part of organizing that search with her brother, Profiling Evil, and Chris McDonough. But you're right, they used to be together a lot more than they are now.
Oh, I never knew. I knew that the brother was on Duty Ron, but I didn't know that like the other channels were interesting. I mean, why wouldn't I would do the same thing if it was a missing loved one, like YouTube is such a good tool, just like Facebook can be used as a good tool,
Her brother was like her hero. Like, I'm telling you, he was what her husband should have been doing, he was doing. You know what I mean?
That's a red flag.
Yeah.
Relationships at the Cold Case Foundation, Chris McDonough. Guys, thanks so much for coming on tonight. It's a big day. First, Chris, let me start with you. You're out in Salida. Your reaction to today's developments, the arrest of Barry Morphew.
Well, Vinny, big day is an understatement, right? I mean, this investigation's been going on close to a year now. I got here last night, and quite frankly, I drove past his house. His windows, all his windows were open, as if he was, doing a counter surveillance of some sort. And I just had the sense that, things were going to go pretty quickly here. And sure enough, 09:15 this morning, from his home, heading into Salida, they took him down on the road, and he's in custody and he's charged with her death.
Mike King, your initial reaction here tonight, as we said, it's almost been a year to the day. I mean, we're talking about Mother's Day last year, and now finally an arrest.
Well, what a bittersweet moment for the Mormon family, and my heart goes out to them. I also think of those two daughters, and I think, holy cow, their heads must be spinning right now. And I wonder if, in fact, he's guilty of this at some point. If Barry's not sitting in a jail cell right now, thinking, "What have I done?"
Yeah. Let's take a listen to the county sheriff who spoke today. And you know, they're not giving out a lot of information, but we're getting bits and pieces.
The question is if we if we'd been searching for her and we hadn't found her, and if there's any indication that she wasn't alive today, is that correct? Well, we believe that she's not alive. We filed first-degree murder charges, or we're in the process of filing first-degree murder charges. So our belief is Suzanne is not alive at this time.
All right, hey, Chris, why do we think that the sheriff's come to that conclusion? Is it just lack of any sort of proof of life anywhere, whether she's been spotted or heard from? What are your thoughts?
You know, Vinny, I think being here on the ground, what I'm sensing is this is still a very fluid, active investigation. I know they're still doing some searches. They're contacting people, even as I sit here with you this evening. And there's an interesting statement that the sheriff made. He says, you know, her no body found. And he didn't say if something else had been found. We don't know that yet, but it certainly is enough to start thinking about, are there other players here? Or are they waiting for additional evidence to come back from the lab, DNA, et cetera, to verify additional information?
Yeah, Mike, you know, from the beginning, I didn't really understand the timeline and where everyone was, because I guess we got some information from the now suspect / defendant, Barry Morphew, trying to set that up. But what do we know about where she was?
Well, I think a couple of things. We didn't get an affidavit shared today, which kind of is frustrating, but I guess I understand it. But from what we've learned over the months and from testimony of different people who were involved with Barry, it appears that about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning on Mother's Day, he reports that he last sees Suzanne laying in bed, and he heads off to Denver into the Broomfield area. We know that direction and those timelines are pretty solid because of testimony of other witnesses associated with Barry. So then we have to look at the timeline fast forward to the afternoon when his kids call him and say, hey, we haven't been able to raise up mom. Can you get a hold of her for us? And he tries, and this is what gets interesting to me, is he then calls the neighbor and asks the neighbor to go over. The neighbor doesn't find anything. And suddenly he comes up with the idea, oh, we'll go and check for her bicycle. And of course, the neighbor then goes and checks and says, no, the bicycle.
So that's interesting because the most recent court TV thing today, the commentator on couldn't remember the details there about the order of reporting her missing. So it's interesting that he asked the neighbor to check for her bicycle. It's like I said earlier, the bicycle, was just him laying out the narrative, you know?
Exactly. Yes. I was thinking about us talking earlier as it was saying that, because it was exactly what we were saying. He has the girl, check on her. Hey, can you go see if Suzanne's home? Oh, she's not home. Can you check if her bike's there? She must have went on a bike ride. And yeah, he just completely set up the story. And then all of a sudden you find the bike down the road, over the hillside.
Yeah. And the only reason why I'm really just focusing on him laying that narrative is because still there's news reports that are saying missing mother who vanished on a bike ride, so it's still his narrative, even though she's been found. Like, it still seems that people are understanding this case as like, oh, the one that was out on a bike ride. And it's like, it seems like the majority of us don't even think that that's the truth, and that was totally a staging. And thank you, Angie Erickson, for the super sticker. I really appreciate that.
Well, Suzanne abruptly stopped messaging her best friend the evening before she went missing. I remember that. Scotty says no electronics. I trust him. I don't remember that because it's been forever, but I'm sure there was something like that. I do remember her abrupt texting, like she doesn't say bye. It was just all of a sudden no more from her the evening before. So
yeah, weren't they talking about a party or something that they were supposed to be doing, going to?
Yes, I forgot. It was like something important that they were planning, like somebody's party or baby shower or something.
Yeah.
And she just all of a sudden quit answering, and that was it.
And it's just interesting too to have the neighbor kind of be the one to get the ball rolling on the missing person report. Barry didn't seem to be concerned with just checking it. We know that their marriage was falling apart, but it's just interesting to see he never tried to say, oh, well, yeah, I tried to call her and she wasn't answering. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Distancing.
Okay, yes. So I believe all communication with her and most people stopped, except for this. All of a sudden, in the middle of the night before she goes missing, she starts like friend requesting and messaging random men that she went to high school with. And like I don't remember the details,
Oh,
so we have to
yes.
go back and look. Yes, there was something like that. And like they believed that was Barry. You know, that was at least the prosecution's theory at the time, or the theory that was going around.
He's like panicking, trying to lay some other narrative.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? In his mind, if he had found out that she's having this affair with her high school fling, he may have started doing the friend requests with guys she went to high school with to portray her as this, you know, woman who's having right, this promiscuous woman who's sleeping around with many guys who she went to high school with.
Yep, exactly. And he was portraying her as like this druggie who was like addicted to drugs and on all these pills when she was, you know, a cancer survivor. And it was not like that, but he was trying, you know.
Yeah. There was an interview about something, and he said that she was having a hard time struggling with the cancer pain meds, something along the lines of what you're saying, you know, painting her out to having like an issue with abusing the pain meds. And it's like that to me just shows his disdain and hate for this woman, to portray her as someone who's an easy woman, in other words, you know, with the friend requests of all these guys. And then also a drug addict, you know, and it's like, it's him just distancing himself to any type of emotional, like, and honestly, if she was, which it seems she was cheating. So if he loved her and he's innocent, I mean, and if she was abusing drugs and if she was messaging those guys, like you would think that he would say, I don't care about all that. I just want her back. But instead, he kind of like lays those like narratives out for the media.
Yes. And Amber, if we like by the end of these clips, if they don't show his little 1 minute thing, we should look at it before we go. I want you to see it. I'm so curious, like your thoughts and also yours, Melissa, because it's been a while. Like, his body language and his tone and everything. It's just very eerie and just bizarre.
There's something detached from him, even in that picture, like right now on the screen. And Scotty says bones aren't going to say much unless she was stabbed or shot. If they don't find that, I think it's a stalemate with him. And I feel like at this point, with how they fumbled the first time arresting him, I just think that they don't have room to kind of flop again, and that this needs to start from scratch and be done right this time. And if it's not Barry, they need to open their avenues for other, you know, possible suspects. But to me, I'm still under the impression that it seems to be Barry.
Agree.
Bicycle's not there, and then that really ramps up and gets the police to do that initial response. And they should really be commended, Vinny, for the way in which they responded. They got on it pretty quick, which sometimes doesn't happen on missing persons cases.
So, Chris, you know, for us, you know, that area, there aren't like neighbors, right? It's not like a regular neighborhood. This is a very, I mean, it's a beautiful home. It's a beautiful part of the country, but it's not like someone would just randomly be walking down the street in this area, would they?
Yeah, no, exactly. And in fact, it's even more isolated as you start to go down the road where the house actually is and where she was reported, last seen. And, as to dovetail, with Mike, we would call that a contact site, right? If this was a stranger abduction, that piece of the puzzle would have been crucial in the investigation. And, early on, Mike and I, looked at each other and said, wow, taking a look at all the evidence that was initially available, kind of looking into that from a behavioral analysis aspect, we couldn't leave the house. And so at that point, we really started to focus on that geographic region. And to your point, for a total stranger to go down that road, boy, he was really placing himself in a big risk situation of getting captured.
Yeah, that's the part. It did make sense to me that it could be some stranger abduction in that area. That did make sense, and apparently doesn't make sense to investigators either. Here's Linda Stanley. She's the DA out there.
For those that didn't hear the question, he said, we're not releasing the affidavit and we don't have a body, so how can I convince the public that we have a strong case? That's my job. I'm the one that considers how strong my case is before I bring charges, and I wouldn't bring charges unless I was confident.
Okay.
And again, that's the DA that he's suing. And that's the same apparently she was withholding what the defense is claiming exculpatory evidence and parts of the discovery from them and all that. So it's just interesting to go back and see how confident she was at the time. I
Yes.
wish they would have found her back then, but again, we're starting from scratch at this point with her body. Like, they need to make sure they dot their I's and cross their T's this time around. And thank you, Roxanne, for the Cash App. I really appreciate that. Love ya.
Okay, this lady was on YouTube channel. She gets my blood boiling. Like, I can't. She was on YouTube channel. She was, she was. She's also been in some other trouble not related to Barry.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's something else. And she was like going on to Profiling Evil and Chris McDonough, and people were very unhappy with it. Like, there's a whole community, Suzanne Morphew, like, group of people who've been searching all these years and stuff, and they are extremely disappointed in what happened with all of that, because yeah, she was on there quite a few times, and yeah, it was pretty crazy. And I'm curious, Jen, she knows more about, because she was a resident there, and she knows more about some of the trouble she's been into. I don't really know the details.
Well, I'm hearing that there could be prosecutorial misconduct with her or something with the actions she took the first time around. So I don't know exactly how it works now that they could possibly have more evidence and all that, but it seems like his defense is probably going to go after her still, if he gets charged again.
Yeah. Well, she's not the DA there now. I don't know. Like, I just remember little bits of it, so I don't want to like say and tell you wrong, but there's a lot more with her. So I feel like he might have an actual chance with that lawsuit in ways with her specifically.
Well, that's good that she's not on the case anymore.
Yeah.
She's confident. Mike, do you think how do you think they're putting this together? Do you think there's a possibility they found some forensic evidence? Is it a digital evidence, eyewitness? Which direction do you think is leading investigators to the conclusion?
Yeah, I think common sense only tells us, and I put your prosecutor hat back on, Vinny. You don't want to go in with one form of evidence. So I am confident they have physical evidence, they have forensic evidence. They probably have some eyewitness testimony, whether it's actually people who were there and participating, or at least know of different pieces of evidence that tie to that. They don't really have confession that we're aware of, but they may have omissions in confession. And it's really the totality, isn't it, that makes these circumstantial cases so incredibly strong, and frankly, much stronger than just simply someone who says, I saw it happen.
Chris, do you think this is a case where they'll somehow be able to recover her? Or is there just so much land out there and so many potential places where she could be that it may be virtually impossible?
At this point, the way I'm seeing, being here on the ground, the way I'm seeing these investigators work, and to dovetail into Mike, these guys have done a fantastic job here. This is still fluid, Vinny, and I think, we may hear additional information, but I do know also that he lawyered up, so he hasn't given a statement. So I don't think he's going to help.
Yeah, Mike, we talked a little bit about the daughters. Do we know where they were that day, how old they are, and their whole stance here as this investigation has continued?
Yeah, what we've learned over time and from the beginning was that they were returning from a church-sponsored or a community-sponsored camp. They made those calls as they were returning on Mother's Day, Father, saying we couldn't get through.
And Chris, do you think it's a coincidence that it's, we're getting close to the Mother's Day weekend and now the announcement, or do you think it's just purposefully done because, okay, we've done all this investigation that we can do, now is the time to bring the charges?
Yeah, I don't think it was a coincidence. I know that the DA, Linda, who's an absolute, great DA, she was presented this case, mid-April. She discovered that appeared to be probable cause to, go get him. But one interesting thing, Vinny, so last night when I was in his neighborhood, there is a large trailer in front of his house. And so I think he was getting ready to make a move. And so my sense is, being, former LE, they had to take him down and get him before he started to, get out of the state.
Yeah. One final question. His mugshot. Anything you guys notice about the mugshot that struck you? And
No, well, yeah, I'll take a stab at it first. I mean, he's lost a lot of weight. He looks like he's weather worn. I think any human being would be weather worn if they lost their spouse. But if you add on top of that the possibility that you're responsible for that, that's going to age you really quickly.
Chris, I'll give you the final word on his mugshot tonight.
You know, Vinny, I did a piece on understanding Barry Morphew, and you'll notice he's in camo. This guy's a hunter through and through. And I just, you know, it's a great day for the, you know, for the Mormon family as
out there that can hear. Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you. We miss you. Your girls need you. No questions asked. However much they want, I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. And I want you back so bad.
That was Barry Morphew when his wife Suzanne went missing out in Colorado.
Thank you, MK, for gifting memberships, and welcome all the new members. Thank you for being here. What were you saying?
That's it. That's his entire like video plea.
That was it?
Yes. And
Oh
he
my
put up
God.
like $200,000 as well, which I immediately I was like, whoa, that's like a huge red flag. You know that ain't nobody gonna know where she's at or something.
You're saying he was confident that no one was going to know it, so he put up all that?
Yeah, that's what I believe, you know.
Yeah.
Even immediately, like I remember that was one of my first thoughts. Curious Jen sent some articles, and I bet they are in reference to the DA. So once we like start playing again, I'll go and send those to you too. I'll forward
And
it
Miss
over.
Tandy agrees with you. That's exactly why he put that amount up.
Yeah, what his body language in that video. I feel like there's one part at the front that it cuts off where he's like, "Oh, Suzanne," unless it showed that. But yeah, because like I can hear him in my head, like, saying that. But he's so I don't know.
Yeah,
Curious
he's
Jen.
cringy. Hang on, give
Yeah.
me 1 second. I gotta pull up that video. It was titled New Evidence, and now it just like, hold on. Hold on. Now I can't find it. It's like not even on my history list. It just X'd out. I don't know what's going on. Give me a second, guys. And thank you for being here, everybody. Hit like if you haven't done so. I'm just pulling up old articles, Court TV specifically. That I only have like less than 20 minutes left because they're only like 8 or 9 minute long videos. And now I don't even see it. Hang on.
But yeah, Allie, he's like, "Oh, Suzanne," you know, like, and that's how it starts. And there's a lot of distancing techniques he does in there. And like ATS mentioned earlier, he's like, your girls need you, not like we need you, you know, your girls need you. And I'm willing to do anything, give them anything they want, you know, pay them anything. Like, no chance she left on her own free will. You just are automatically to someone holding her hostage, you know. But I agree that coming out with the $200,000 reward right off the bat was almost as if because he knew that there wasn't anyone who was going to come forward, so he wasn't ever going to have to pay it out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. See, that's crazy. And so when he says, "Oh, Suzanne," does it not give you like a shiver up your spine? Just like I don't know. And
It
you
wasn't
know what? I
genuine.
mean, I know it wasn't at all. And I know it's innocent until proven guilty and all that in a court of law. But we are not in a court of law. That's just my opinion because I know, you know, it's just the truth. But some people probably are going to think that he's innocent. I just fall on the side where there's so much evidence. And even though Linda's family, which I sent the articles to you guys, she's been in all kinds of controversy, there's still a lot of evidence that the investigators gathered. The fact that you also think that that's why he put up the 200,000, see, that's so interesting to me, because that's a lot of money. And I don't know, he just, even the way he says it in that video, like you said, like, I don't know, it's just something is not right about it.
Well, and he lied about the path that he took driving to work that morning, and then ultimately it came out that he drove past the place that Suzanne's helmet was later found, and then he later said, oh yeah, that's right, he drove past that area because of an elk that had like ran past it. Like, what?
Yep. And see, they got the like they with his truck, the GPS and telematics or whatever it is, so they knew every move that he made, and he took a very interesting route, like he turned the wrong direction, right instead of left. And remember, they also got him, number one, going to like 4 or 5 different dumpsters, dumping all kinds of stuff. And they had him in this hotel room where when he leaves, people complain that it smells very strong, like chlorine or chemicals or something.
And he tried to say it was the pool, yet the pool was shut down for COVID.
Yes. Yes. The pool was shut down. Like, oh my God. People, I remember, that's crazy. It's crazy because it's been so long, but like you saying that, it just comes right back to me.
I mean, you could just do like a whole live stream on all the fishy behavior that Barry did. And it's like, yes, it's just behavior, but if we've seen it in its totality and we went through the list, it's kind of really damning. And hello, Carolina. It's good to see you.
And it's not one thing. It's like, multiple things.
Yeah, it was like a 45, I'm just referring to chat. It was like 45 minutes away from their home she was found. So
not far.
Right. I was just going to say close, but like not super close. Okay, let's see this Oh Suzanne thing again.
Anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you. We miss you. Your girls need you. No questions asked. However much they want, I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. I want you back so bad.
That was Barry Morphew when his wife Suzanne went missing out in Colorado. And prosecutors, investigators, not necessarily believing what he was saying in that video because he's been charged with her murder. They still haven't found her. But based upon the investigation, the evidence they've collected, they have charged him with Suzanne's murder. Well, the attorneys were back in court. But for those of you not familiar with the story, Ted Rowlands has more for us.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you. We miss you. Your girls need you.
That's Barry Morphew in a video posted on YouTube back in May of 2020, begging for his wife Suzanne's safe return. And just under 1 year after the 49-year-old mother of two vanished, her husband, Barry, was arrested and charged in her death.
We're announcing that at 09:15 hours this morning, the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office arrested Suzanne Morphew's husband, Barry Morphew. He was taken into custody near his home in Poncha Springs. He was alone at the time of his arrest, and he was arrested without incident.
The investigation is still ongoing. Suzanne, her body has not been found, and we're still looking into that. The investigation is ongoing.
Details of what happened to Suzanne are still unknown to the public, but Barry Morphew has been charged with tampering with a human body and first-degree murder. The Morphews lived in Maysville, Colorado, a rural area about 2 hours west of Colorado Springs. The family relocated from Indiana in 2018. Suzanne was last seen on Mother's Day in 2020. Her husband told investigators she went for a ride on her bike and never returned home. Her bike was found down a hillside off a trail, but no other signs of Suzanne.
We're looking for torn clothing, human remains, and things of that nature.
Suzanne's older brother, Andy Mormon, joined friends, family, volunteers, and law enforcement in the search for Suzanne. Mormon said he doesn't believe Barry's story about the Mother's Day bike ride.
I'm nearly certain she never got on the bicycle. I honestly believe she was taken the night before Mother's Day. Just all the evidence points that way.
And Suzanne's husband, Barry, was noticeably absent from the searches and from speaking publicly. something Andy Mormon found suspicious during the months he was looking for his sister.
Very, very suspicious. I mean, if it was my wife missing, there's nothing that I wouldn't do. There is no level of cooperation that I wouldn't take care of. I don't feel like Barry stepped up to the plate at all out there. He's kind of hidden himself from all you guys. And if it were me, I would want all the media attention I could get. I would be forming a search party just as I'm doing now. And he hasn't done that, and that's troublesome to me.
Barry previously told investigators that he was in Denver 150 miles away at the time Suzanne went missing. But prosecutors say Barry is accused of killing Suzanne sometime between May 9th and May 10th of 2020. And on May 5th, 2021, 360 days after Suzanne went missing, Barry Morphew was arrested near his home in Poncha Springs, Colorado. He is currently being held without bond.
Ashley, guess what? I'm going to therapy.
They're still getting ready for the preliminary hearing in this case, but this was a huge investigation, a lot of information, a lot of exchange of information, mostly from prosecutors to the defense, obviously. And in court, the judge found that prosecutors had not handed some stuff over in a timely manner. Take a look, and found that there was a discovery violation, but there were no sanctions for prosecutors. Handed over late, but no harm, no foul. The judge said, listen, just don't make a pattern of all this. Let's bring back in the think tank quickly. On that note, Bernard, a big deal, not a big deal when the judge finds that you've violated the rules of discovery but you're not sanctioned? Does that happen a lot?
So because the judge didn't sanction the prosecutor, the judge must have found that it wasn't so egregious in the sense of, look, the trial hasn't started. Actually, they haven't even done a preliminary hearing yet. So they're so far ahead of the ball at this point. There has been no prejudice to the defendant at this point. So I can see why the judge did not issue any sanctions, but give a strong warning to the prosecutor, like, look, come on, all the stuff has to be turned over.
All right. Well, we got an idea of some of the things that were discussed during this hearing. Let's put that up on the screen. Some of the evidence that exists. They handed over 1 terabyte of discovery. I don't know. Is that a lot? Maybe it is. The iPhone records, Kindle records, body cam videos, hotel surveillance video. I can't imagine what that is. And then there was also a discussion that the FBI confronted Morphew with 26 exhibits in April. So let's bring back in the think tank. Ian, let me begin with you. If you were handed 1 terabyte of discovery, would you be overwhelmed? Is that a lot? Is that a little? How much is that?
So it's a ton. And Vinny, as you know, this is what I teach at the law school, cybercrime, and we handle cyber matters all the time. It's a lot of data. 2 lessons here that I take from this case, because I find this case very interesting. Number one, when hiring defense counsel, make sure they understand technology and they have the resources to deal with mass amounts of data, because very few cases today can escape the crime scene that is data. Number 2, the prosecution has an obligation, a reasonable obligation, not just to hand it over, but to make it accessible to the defense. Think about it like this. They wouldn't hand over a treasure chest, let's say a chest somehow with a key lock on it closed, and say, here you go, everything's inside. We fulfilled our obligation. They have to give you the key. And here, this data comes in so many different formats, so many different forms, with so many different ways to access it. Defense needs to be led to the proper protocols. So the state's got to get moving. They've got to say, look, here's the key to the chest, and then it's on the defense. The defense is going to have a lot of work in this case reviewing data. That's just the nature of criminal defense today. It has changed from what it was even 5 years ago.
Well, you can always call a tech whiz like Brian Weiss, I mean, this guy is amazing. He's like his own walking IT department. Which is more concerning to you, Brian, when prosecutors have a lot of evidence like this, or when you hear the words hotel surveillance video?
Well, I'm not quite sure the relevance of the hotel surveillance video, except maybe to show that the defendant's a bad guy. You know, Ian mentioned the word key. To me, the key, or one of the keys in this case, is that now famous 130-page probable cause affidavit. That, to me, is something that I would love to see, because even in Colorado, prosecutors do not go out and take a citizen into custody and charge them with the most serious crime that you can charge anybody with in this country, in the criminal justice system, without having a good faith belief that they have probable cause. That's why that now critical 130-page probable cause affidavit becomes important. But again, Ian makes a salient point. We have come so far from the days when I first started out, where jurors weren't nearly as sophisticated. Lawyers didn't have nearly the continuing legal education training that is now mandatory to be able to put them in a position where they can render reasonably effective assistance to counsel. If you're going to hire me, trust me, it better be to do your appeal, your post-conviction writ, because I can't program my DVR.
Yeah, because Brian used to get the discovery off of the Ditto machine. The discovery would come in and he'd go, oh yeah, they just printed that one out. All right, think tank staying with us. When we come back, we're going to take you on the docket, a case we're tracking out of Georgia. A 17-year-old girl is shot and killed, but the defendant is claiming.
Okay, and then the last one, this is from 2 years ago, Court TV. It's only 8 minutes, but I have it at 1.25 speed. We'll see what it says. It's titled No Bail for Barry Morphew, husband of missing Colorado mom Suzanne Morphew. And somebody in chat wants to know about the DNA on the glove box, which was linked to other crimes. They were allegedly other essays, and it's an unknown DNA source. I've heard it's partial. I've heard there's a lot of debate around it, but I also heard that that's one of the reasons, well, one of the things that the prosecution was withholding from the defense. So we can dig more into that, like on a future live. I feel like this live is just pretty much gathering, like refreshing our minds. Like we're kind of all of us working through like, oh yeah, remember this, remember that. So there's a lot to this that we're going to be digging into, and even more so once those autopsy results come back.
I'm still kind of like, from that clip, them saying 1 terabyte is a ton of evidence, and then I'm thinking about Koberger having 51 terabytes. Kind of interesting.
That is
Yeah.
very interesting. Very interesting. And I believe Suzanne had her car recently worked on. Like you said, you can get into that later, but there's a lot of debate around that. It's not necessarily like, I don't know, what they're making it seem. Also, if they were holding it back, how did they discuss it like at his preliminary hearing? Because I remember them debating it then.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing, is like it seems like an element of something that's all over the place.
Yeah.
I think we should iron that out eventually.
Yeah.
Mrs. Kurt Cobain wants to know, if the body, we were kind of discussing that earlier. So they were able to identify her through dental and her cancer port. So we were kind of wondering like, okay, so then what type of condition is it in? I don't think anyone knows exactly, but it seems like most experts are saying definitely would be skeletal. And as far as being able to find DNA, I think that's going to come down to maybe clothing. What do you guys think?
Well, Shay gifted 10 memberships.
Oh, thank you, Shay. Thank you, everyone who's gifted memberships tonight and donated and Cash Apped. I really appreciate you guys. And it just means a lot to me that you two are here with me on panel, and that everyone just listens and combs through this case together and other cases. So I'm just really thankful.
Thank you for having us.
Of course.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. It's so interesting to me. I love listening to your guys' thoughts. So yeah, thank you for having me.
I have to say though, like Alex, you are like an encyclopedia, like on so many cases. I don't know how you remember these details. Like,
right?
It's like, holy cow, like I know stuff, but like I'm just amazed. Like you said something earlier in chat about wanting to hear my thoughts and the way my mind thinks, and I feel the same way about you guys. But like the fact that you just remember so much, like I don't even know if you have notes in front of you.
No, I don't. It's all off the top of my head.
That goes her head.
It's crazy.
No, but she was saying things earlier, and I said the same thing. I was like, holy crap, yes, I forgot about that.
I don't know how I remember it either. But I forget about a lot of cases though too. I mess up a lot too, so to be fair.
Well, no one's perfect, so we'll let it slide. But I don't know. It's like that. There's like a meme out there, like my brain is 99% song lyrics, and that's like how my brain is. But I feel like yours is like 99% case details, like every case detail.
That is too funny. No, I don't know. Like I said, some of them, like, you know how it is, like with you with Watts, like, shoot, I learned a lot of the stuff that I know about that one from you. But like certain cases that grab you, you just like want to know every detail. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's how I was with this one, and with, with Watts or Summer Wells or certain cases, Gannon's case, like they just grab you and you want to know every single detail. So, but thank you. And that was too funny.
Well, again, I just want to thank you guys again for coming up. I really value both your guys' opinions. So this last one is only 8 minutes, and then we'll kind of conclude things, and I'll conclude our kind of re-examining just the touch surface. This is, again, just 2 years ago, these clips. So things did progress and change further, and that we haven't even heard them mention the affairs.
Yes,
Yeah.
they haven't.
Welcome back to Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice. I'm your midday host, Julie Grant, and it's great to have you with us on this Thursday afternoon as we continue our gavel-to-gavel coverage of the case of the state of Iowa versus defendant Michelle Boat. She is accused of the first-degree murder last year. They're on witness number 4. And so what we're going to do right now, while we're waiting for them to come back, is shift gears to bring you your daily sidebar with some breaking news that we've been following since yesterday. This is a case out of Colorado. There's been an arrest in the disappearance of Suzanne Morphew. Morphew's husband, Barry, just made his first court appearance today. This is him. He's being held without any bail. Barry Morphew now facing charges of first-degree murder and tampering with physical evidence in his wife's disappearance. There's also a charge of attempting to influence a public servant. That as well he's facing. Now remember, we're just a few days shy of the year since the 49-year-old mother was last seen on Mother's Day. This is Suzanne right here. She vanished without a trace while she was and at the time, Morphew's husband, Barry, had publicly pleaded for her safe return. Take a look.
Well, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you. We miss you. Your girls need you. No questions asked. However much they want, I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. And I want you back so bad.
Now, despite extensive searches and intense media coverage, Morphew's body has never been found. Let me bring in Court TV anchor Ted Rollins and Judge Ashley Wilcott. Okay, Judge, I want to start with you. So we know that Suzanne's body has never been found. The sheriff believes she's dead. The DA seems very confident in this case that even though there has been no body that's been recovered, that shouldn't be a problem to move forward with the prosecution. We've seen it before. Let's take a listen to what was said.
The question is if we've been searching for her and we hadn't found her, and if there's any indication that she wasn't alive today, is that correct? Well, we believe that she's not alive. We filed first-degree murder charges, or we're in the process of filing first-degree murder charges. So our belief is Suzanne is not alive at this time.
For those that didn't hear the question, he said, we're not releasing the affidavit and we don't have a body, so how can I convince the public that we have a strong case? That's my job. I'm the one that considers how strong my case is before I bring charges, and I wouldn't bring charges unless I was confident.
All right, Judge. So highlight for us some of the difficulties when the state moves forward on a case where there is no body.
Sure. First of all, I liked her confidence to say, I have the evidence. It's my job. I'm going to prove it. So we know in 1960, People versus Scott, which is a U.S. Supreme Court, said, listen, if you have a missing person, you don't have a body, you can prove it by circumstantial evidence so long as it takes away any other reasonable hypothesis. So the state has the obligation, and we have to see that there's enough circumstantial evidence, Julie, to say nothing else could have happened, right? There's no other reasonable explanation for what happened in the circumstance. And I just want to throw out a couple of statistics to think about. And that is, I think since the 1800s, 1863 maybe, there have been over 500 known convictions of murders where there was no body. Add to that, about 86% of the charges in cases where there's no body has resulted in conviction. So connect the dots, lots of circumstantial evidence, no other reasonable explanation for what happened. I think you can see a conviction in these types of cases.
I'm with you, Judge. They can certainly get there. Ted, I have a special question for you, if I may, please. This case has some parallels to another very high-profile case that's just recently been seen in the news again, the one with Scott and Laci Peterson. I know you know this case very well. You're an expert on it. Now, besides the emotional public plea for the wife return, what else jumps out to you as some similarities between the two?
Well, and that was a big one, right? When Laci Peterson went missing, people first in California, then the country wanted to know where this woman was. And the same thing happened with Suzanne Morphew. It's she's just a mother, beautiful woman who vanishes off the face of the earth. Come on. And in both cases, of course, the husband was suspect number one out of the gate in terms of not only investigators, but the public as well. So Scott Peterson was under a microscope, same with Barry Morphew, and both of them pleaded with the public to have her help. We saw Scott Peterson doing interviews, help me find my missing wife. I will find her. Same thing with Barry Morphew. Help me find. The difference in the Peterson case, prosecutors were very reluctant to pull the trigger until, in fact, they didn't until Laci and Connor's bodies washed up in the San Francisco Bay. In this case, Colorado prosecutors believe they they have enough circumstantial evidence to convince a jury that not only is she dead, but her husband Barry killed her.
Exactly. You know, and in terms of what led to the charging, we know that, gosh, more than 70 investigators from multiple agencies conducted 400 plus interviews, the execution of more than 135 different search warrants, and over 1,400 tips coming in were sorted through and then followed up upon. So in terms of what might have led to this, it's tough to know because that arrest affidavit is still under seal, as we know. But
which, by the way,
yes,
I don't like that at all. And the response from the prosecutor, well, I wouldn't bring charges unless I have you just got to trust me. That's not how the system works. Is that otherwise any prosecutor can say, oh, don't worry about it. I arrested your brother because you could trust me. I've got the evidence. No, that's not how it works. Unless there are other circumstances, which she should have alluded to in that answer. It's the only problem I have is that she alluded to it as though you can trust me. Well, we probably can trust her, but you can't trust that position.
I see what you're saying. What do you think, Ted and Judge, I want to ask you both, what do you think led to the charging? Best educated guess just on the facts that we know right now. Judge.
I assume it has to be this. You know, she's last seen on Mother's Day. They look into it. They start an investigation. Something doesn't add up. They talk to witnesses. They go and look where she was bike riding. There must have been something that didn't make sense, that wasn't sounding plausible, realistic. And so they look at the next step and they start to look at the immediate people that surround her in her life. We know one of the first people that law enforcement always looks at are the people that live with the person in the home, and that's her husband.
Yeah, he's under a cloud of suspicion on this one. Ted, what's your best guess as to why the charges now?
Well, I would look at today's proceeding for a clue. And what happened today in Colorado was the judge also issued a protective order for the children. And when this first broke, the two girls were supporting, presumably, Barry Morphew because they were living in the same home. I believe something changed, and it may be tied to those two girls.
That's a good educated guess. We have to leave it there. Ted Rollins, Judge Ashley.
Wonder what that's about. Do you remember anything about the protective order?
I believe that it was like, didn't they drop it and he was able to talk to I don't believe anything came from it. I think that it was dropped or something like that. It was just like, if I'm not mistaken, some sort of protocol that was followed, and then he asked for it to be dropped and they did.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, since now, obviously, well, for a while, they've been by his side, and I just can't imagine what's going on behind closed doors, like with what's going through their head. You know, are they talking together as sisters privately and like whispering so the dad doesn't hear? Or like, what is going on? You know what I mean?
I'm sure they are. I can't imagine. I can imagine them standing by their dad's side until they can't anymore, you know, like being naive. But they have to be talking amongst themselves, like as sisters. I can't imagine them not.
Yeah, I agree. And I would love to know if they think, surely one of them already was pushing for mom to leave the situation and stuff like that. But I don't know. Surely they could see somewhat of what's going on.
Do you remember that interview where they were both holding his arms, like he was sitting in the center of them and they were both like locked into his arms?
I was just about to say, like, I remember that coming out and I need to rewatch it because it came out not too long ago, right? That was like, yeah, I need to rewatch that. But yes, they support him 100%, you know, and even when they got him from jail, I mean, I'll never forget watching him walk out of there and like get in the truck and drive off, and it was just like, I don't know, he had this arrogance to him. It was just so rude in my opinion. But
it seems like Barry's gotten his way most his life, I bet.
Yeah, there's people who went to school with him and Suzanne who have done interviews and things like that and kind of talked about how he was and they were when they were young. And I think he's always kind of been the popular dude, and he played baseball and stuff like that. He's definitely always got in his way, I think.
All right. Well, thank you so much for going through all that. I hope it was able to refresh some stuff in your guys' minds so that you guys feel like, have a direction to go, because I'll be watching your guys' coverage on this case. And I know many others will too. And their links are in the description box. And Thank you for being here, and thank you, chat, and everyone who donated. I really appreciate all of you guys, truly.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And I definitely think, like Ali suggested, we should definitely go over his arrest warrant and stuff sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this is just the beginning of a new chapter in the case and working towards justice. So I think that going through stuff is definitely beneficial for everyone.
Even watching that interview again, and I'll be very curious to see what comes from, because remember, she wasn't found. When were we told? Yesterday or the day before? Whenever she was found, like a week before that. They've been in the process. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm curious to see what conclusions they'll come to based on what they recovered, you know?
Absolutely.
I know, I'm on the edge of my seat. All right, well, that we'll leave it there. Tomorrow, I know, Alex, you're going live at, what was it, 5 o'clock?
I think it's
Or
set
what?
for 8, actually.
Okay. 8
I
p.m.
don't-
Eastern time. We'll
yeah,
be
and
there.
it's gonna be a fundraiser, actually, so I'm excited. And it's about Suzanne, but it's just going to be laid back. If you guys can join, I would love that. And I asked Jen and Curious Jen and, you know, really anybody who would want to. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Suzanne a little bit and also go through some of the evidence that came out during the preliminary hearing and stuff, some of the photographs of the house and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
I look forward to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of digging to do, and I'm going to rewatch the Criminality documentary too, just to refresh myself on her angle of the case too, because I know that some things that we hone in on, others don't, and vice versa. So, all right, I guess I'll leave. It's so awkward ending things with panel guests, and let alone by myself.
Isn't it?
Well,
Isn't it?
thank you
Oh
for
my
having
gosh.
me. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.